Just a question for the audience. Who has ever had a very in-depth conversation with their AI? Personal? Honestly? No? Really? Okay. I was at a conference yesterday in Amsterdam in front of 300-400 coaches, and I would say more than 2/3 of the hands went up. Yeah? Because what we're experiencing lately is more and more people building a relationship with their AI. Yeah? For those people who have never heard of Esther Perel, she's a world-renowned psychologist. She has an amazing podcast, Where Do We Begin? The latest episode gave me the creeps. So please look it up. She interviewed, or she did a therapy session with a developer who created his own AI partner, let's put it this way. Her name's Astrid. You will, listen to it, and I want to hear what you say afterwards. And it really shows how human AI already sounds, how people start building relationships with AI. And this is not only for this year. We've already seen it 4 or 5 years ago with Replica, an AI app that a lot of the younger people have been using as well. And when they changed their algorithm, it broke their users' heart, and they stopped using it. So we have this phenomena, and it's going around, it's everywhere. And that's why I'm very excited today to have this panel, because I think it's not about customer support, everything else here that we've been discussing throughout the conference, but it's also about how people start relating to their AI, because they enter these AI systems also looking for personal support, for help navigating their life in general. Some of the top 2 use cases of generative AI use, according to the Harvard Business Review, is companionship, purpose, finding purpose, discussing that with AI, yeah? And also trying to navigate your life. So these are the 3 topics that are in the top ranking. And this is really going to change our society within the next few years. So, welcome. Hi, Ray, thanks. Great you made it. But in the meantime, we already had your colleague joining us on the panel, so we have a full panel. So maybe you first want to introduce yourself just quickly on what your passion is around AI and what really drives you.
Hello, okay. Hi everyone, I'm Malak. I come from the University of Cambridge. I'm an academic, so I work more on the kind of research teaching side of things. I've learned a lot over the past 2 days, but I'm here because I'm very interested in kind of reconciling between industry and what people are actually building, deploying, using, and kind of the blue sky thinking of academia that we all kind of just sit in our labs and work on. So that's kind of what drives me and why I'm here today.
Thanks so much. I'm Ray with Idea Bay AI. We're part of the UI Chatbot Summit S2. And for me, AI is merely a tool. And I'm trying to figure out the good path between, we want to put AI everywhere, or we just want to use it as a tool, but also get into the ripple effects of it. Like, if you actually use it everywhere you could, what are the things that are going to happen from it to you, your company, your coworkers, your team, and from there, what is going to happen to you? Like, how are you going to have to evolve? You, your product, your team, the people around you. So it feels like looking into the future, even though we're just even though we're not having all of the answers yet, like today even. And that's very, very exciting for me.
Thank you.
So Caroline, hello. Shall I tell you a bit more about some of the things that I do voice related? So actually a really lovely thing happened earlier this afternoon where one of the delegates here that has traveled from America said to me, they said, do you work with the Living Labs? They were like, your voice sounds really familiar. And I was like, yes, my voice is on Living Labs. I have cloned my voice. And they were like, oh my gosh, can I have a selfie kind of thing? They were like, I need to send this to the office because we used your voice. And so that's the first time that that's ever happened, because you do these things. Well, I guess I never really think about like how far-reaching these things can go. Voices to me are fascinating. I think the Scottish accent and dialect can be particularly challenging, not just for AI, probably for a lot of you in the audience. So I do try to speak as clearly as I can. So that's just so amazing that happened today, because it's something that I didn't really think about too much. I do think having voices which are accessible is important, and making sure that different people's accents and history and culture are represented in the voices that they hear. So that was kind of part of the reason why I created that voice clone, because there aren't many Scottish voices. They're certainly not ones which are decent and actually sound Scottish. So this whole kind of conversation around, should we make AI sound human? I think only if we can make sure that the diversity is represented. So I think that's the thing that's really important to me. And then the last panel, Kane was talking about accessibility. So my business is actually in smart homes. So I help people to adopt these technologies like your Alexas and your Googles. And the voice is really important for them. It's really important, for someone that's hard of hearing to be able to understand the voices. It's been interesting seeing what's happening with the Alexa Plus rollout in America. So the voices have changed. And so a lot of people have strong opinions about why did the old voice go away and what they think about the new options. So again, it's like we get used to a certain voice as well. So that's also a really interesting dynamic. So yes, I cannot wait to hear from everyone, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And sounding is also through text, yeah? So because you also perceive that. And I love that you mentioned that, because I work a lot in Switzerland, and they have a very strong, it's not German, yeah, if you ask them. They speak Swiss German or Alemannisch. Same, probably very similar to what your experience with the Scottish, as well, and there's not a lot of data available around that. So the first part is here, can we make AI sound human? And I would actually say I think we can. We already probably have experienced that as well. So I would like to twist that a little bit and ask that question to you. Why would we want to do that? Why would we want to actually make AI sound human? What do you think?
I was going to hand off to her. Yeah, go for it. It's more of a philosophical.
Yeah, it is. Should we and can we? So I even though you want to skip the can, that sounds weird.
Why would we want to do it?
I mean, we can, but it depends on the definition, and that's why the should we is also a little on the offside.
Come to that later.
Yeah, so should we? Yes, to make stuff accessible. It's the one hurdle that people can't overcome. If something doesn't work, and if we can't interact with it, then people will not use it. If people don't use it, and I'm coming from the business side of perspective right now, even though it's so from the business side perspective, we should. You have to make it accessible so people are using it, so we can use it for them too. And yes, we should. Simple as that for me. On a human thing, should we do it? I don't know. There should be an awareness of if I'm talking to a machine or if I'm talking to a human, right? So if the line gets so blurry that we can't see if I'm actually talking to a human or a machine, then we shouldn't somehow. But that's my personal feeling. I want to know if I'm talking to a human or a bot. So yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle there.
My question was though, why would we want to do this as humans? We humans seem to want to create something that sounds like us. It started with the old Greeks, like we want to create something that is human-like and as close as we can.
Yeah.
So I was asking more of philosophical questions, like why would we want to do that?
Because
Is
we
that
wanna use
really
it.
important that it sounds like us?
Yeah, because we want to use it. That's why I'm talking about the hurdle. Like, if a hammer doesn't have a handle that you can't use, then you will not use the hammer, and you will miss the hammer forever. So that hurdle that's why we want to do it, because we already know and we already decided. That's why we are here at this moment, that we do want to use it. So that the question for the why for me is not that relevant anymore, because we also already decided on the why. Why? Because we need the tool, or we want the tool. It doesn't matter if need or want.
Who's we?
We all, everyone who's here. Even though there's a lot of people down there and out there who's saying, I don't want to use it, I'm afraid of AI, it could do so many wrong things. All true. It's no fault, but still we're here. Still we're talking about how to integrate it in the best way. So the decision is already done.
Does it need to sound human so we can use it?
Yeah. So everyone can use it in the same way. That the hurdle is, it doesn't understand me. I don't understand it. I don't want to talk to it because it sounds. If I hear a voice that I'm talking to, a person, I'm pretty sure you all have one person somewhere in your social area whose voice is so annoying that every time you think like, oh, I'm going to see that person again, you're like, please don't talk to me today, please. Because you have this serious voice that reminds me of the nanny, and I didn't like the nanny because of that one. You know, that's why we want to have it, because we want to use it.
But this is an interesting topic. I want to get that to you, Malak, because now we're entering in, because this is also human. Humans sound like that. So we are already bringing now our bias in of what voice we like and what voice we don't like. I know people who like very specific voices, and it can be super different as well. And I have a good friend, she quit her AI, like talking to her AI for a while in the morning, because she used the integrated ChatGPT voices, and they changed Spruce, and she used Spruce. And then she's American, and she was very annoyed about this, so she didn't use her AI for a while because the noise annoyed her. But that brings us to the more, I think, the cultural questions as well. Like, should we make these decisions for the users? How should we integrate those users? And how can we make sure that everything is kind of like considered when we build that?
Yeah, I think coming kind of from my perspective, it's less of should we or shouldn't we, and it's more which humans are we trying to sound like and why, and who is kind of in charge of these decisions. Just kind of from personal experience with the project I was involved with, we were trying to envision a chatbot to help with diabetes management in Egypt, which is an Arabic-speaking country, and the entire team was from Europe, and by default they thought we should make the chatbot in English, to begin with at least, and obviously that kind of didn't gel very well, from ranging from people who just could not speak English, did not have that literacy, all the way down to I don't feel comfortable enough to discuss my health in my non-native language, for example, and there was a lot of kind of friction there. At the same time, Egypt is an interesting use case because they don't use standard Arabic. I'm Egyptian, so that's why I'm kind of just speaking about that. We have our own dialect, and if you start speaking to someone in standard Arabic, it's also going to feel very authoritative, like a teacher or something, kind of not very comfortable. But we just didn't have the data. No one had generated a data set. There wasn't that kind of resources available. And so I think who gets to make these decisions, which can tend to sometimes be a more Western-centric, more European-centric or US-centric perspective, for me at least, is interesting because it's, again, which humans are we trying to sound like, and is that always the best option, is kind of how I would shift the question a bit.
Anything you want to add?
I think there's also the gender lens as well. So in terms of like historically, how many of these agents are female? So Alexa is a very good example of that. Yes, you can choose your own voices now, and you can adapt it and change it. But it's interesting how much that still that the default is that when something is humanized, it will be given a female name and a more female persona. So I think there's definitely something really interesting around that gender lens and like why do we gravitate towards that? It's actually incredibly hard to make a voice which is gender neutral. Yeah. So, and yeah, like hats off to people that have been working on that, because it is incredibly difficult, because voice is so subjective, and it is so inherently a part of us. So yeah, I think it is really important that we have these open conversations about gender and some of the bias and the way in which like the design choices we make can have a really strong influence.
I love that you mentioned that. My Siri is by the male. I have a male Siri, yeah, and my husband's always like, "Why did you pick that?"
I want to add to that because I think that links back to your general question, who should make the decision? I mean, I think this journey of Alexa and the female assistant bias is showing the design cycle in it as well. When we didn't know better back then, right? So it wasn't it was a biased somehow decision to make all those assistants female, but on the other hand, there was no other data, and it was the first thing that everyone had in mind, like, what is an assistant? It's female. But also remember, that's like 20 years ago. So we learned the last 20 years. But since then, we went through that cycle of we need more voices, we need more diverse voices. We tried a lot. What's it called? The non-binary voices, they didn't work because there was still somehow some gender, or at least perceived as some gender. And that links me to your question. You asked at the beginning, who's making this decision? Should we be doing this decision? And actually, if you go into design cycles, somebody has to do the first decision, right? Always. You have to start somewhere so you can iterate on it. And that's what we did the last couple of years. We tried all the routes of different voices. We tried all the routes of different genders in voices. We tried all the genders in assistant spaces. And every company is doing that too. And we're doing it on a company level, on a product level, but also on a cultural level. Some voices that work here don't work in Egypt because they're like, oh, what's that kind of voice? So it's not I don't think it's a matter of bias. It's a matter of trying again, and not being judged by trying. Because trying is actually something good, and you have to do errors and mistakes to go on trying and make better. So I don't think it's a decision we do. I think it's a start that we're taking to go down a road that makes everyone happy.
Yes, and I think the design choice would also be, like, when we started building our first AI coaches back in 2018, we had actually a selection that we started with of 5 characters because we wanted to figure out what people associate more with. And we had a male and a female that they both liked, but they all loved the monster. So we went for the monster. And there's some really interesting research why actually non-human characters work better, yeah, for people like to have, you know, a conversation with that is not getting into the uncanny valley, yeah, so that they feel it's too human-like and then get a little bit scared around that as well. So I chose now for most of my AI, like I build a lot of coaches, like AI coaches and chatbot conversations for coaching specific, yeah, and personal growth and all that. And mine is an alpaca because it's cute, it's fluffy. There is a lot about, you know, using zoomorphic characters and avatars as well. So I wonder why not more people are actually doing this, because there's a research also for it, yeah, that it's actually good to do that. And the first year, it was 3 years ago, I was at the Coaching and Technology Conference at the NYU in New York, and I saw these pamphlets of people doing advertising for their AI coach. And I can tell you, 90% were female characters, black, and they had orange suits or like blazers or, you know, something on, and I'm like, why? It's very weird, no? When you're a female, you're looking into this, and then you think, with all, let's say, the history that the US had as well, why would they choose that? And I know they wanted to do it out of diversity reasons, so it was well meant, but let's say bad executed, yeah, in the end, because that's not your servant, yeah. It's an interesting discussion, and I did not see any icons or any other like more illustrated or fantasy characters or something like, and I thought that was very interesting. Did you come across any of that too?
Well, I would say first reminder and shout out to Clippy.
Yes. Oh, who still remembers Clippy? Clippy?
And Merlin?
Yeah.
Clippy and Merlin, right? The constant fight. The one is the human thing that everyone annoys because you think like, hey, why is a human telling me how to do what? And the other one is a Clippy that is just the same annoying but perceived less annoying, and it can tell you what to do.
They had an Einstein, no, for
Yeah.
about half a year
Yeah,
or
they had it
something.
happen
and
too.
it disappeared.
And so for me, even though we always talk about assistants, there's different kinds of assistants. Like there's the coaching assistant, the assistant who does things for you, the assistant who's just tagging along with you and chimes in. And on that case, I would ask you, is being biased really a bad thing always? Because if I can create something that everyone perceives the way I want it to be perceived directly so they can jump right into what brings them value, is that really a bad thing to then choose a woman? Because I know that all of my clients, all of my customers, they will react positively on a black woman in an orange suit if they get taught by them in that second, so I get 100% alignment? Or is that just, is that bad? I mean, they get what they want. It is bad if I use that like in a bad way, but I don't give that bad intention to anyone, using bias as something to get you close to what you want.
Sorry. I think my perspective on that is it could be bad because of how these technologies then influence users and shape their behavior. So there's been research showing that interacting with female conversational agents for long periods of time can make males view females less favorably over time. And I think with a lot of the stuff we just don't know. It's very new. People haven't been interacting with LLMs, for example, for 50, 60 years so that we can kind of see the longitudinal effects. And so I feel like maybe from a business perspective, yes, okay, that makes sense. But from a kind of human, ethical, responsible perspective, given that these decisions will then potentially shape behaviors, we should not always kind of mirror society and align with it, but rather think how we can improve it.
May I challenge that
Yeah,
for a second?
of course.
I get you from my generation. I'm totally with you. Like, so there is that thing. But if I look at the, I don't know, 14 to 20 years old, and I feel reminded, they have a whole different perspective. And if they feel we're giving them something that is totally biased, they will not use our product. And we need them to use our product. They're going to be our future customers. And so maybe us talking about being or using biased is our bias as well, and not a general bias. So I'm with you. It can lead to bad things, and we need to be responsible in using dark design, and some call it dark design patterns. But at the same time, I believe a lot of these fears that we are carrying with us, I don't see them in younger generations anymore. So I'm quite happier, and I'm always been for diversity. I mean, but I'm feeling more free to use these things to make them get closer to where I want them to be. But I'm with you. We have to be cautious, and we should always be.
Thank you. I was reflecting on what you were saying, Malak, as well, and I'm glad actually you spoke about the work that you're obviously looking at, in terms of research. It all comes down to context, doesn't it? So I'm reflecting on, so we had Masha on the stage who was talking about voice technology in harsh environments. And so I used to work offshore. I was the only woman on the whole rig, so 150 blokes, one woman. And if I imagine the scenario where it was my voice in their ear, helping them, giving them instructions, I'm not sure how responsive they would be to that. And I think, to your very first point, they would be like, this is so, I'm not going to swear, but they would use an F word, I can guarantee you, and they would be like, I'm not using this, I cannot listen to this voice every day. And so it definitely is about context, but that also baked into that is bias as well. And it's very difficult when you work in an industry that is so strongly dominated by certain personalities and certain, you know, behavioral like work patterns and things as well. So, yeah, it's and that whole, you know, society, you know, mirroring society, absolutely such a good point. So, yeah, thank you.
I want to bring in another topic that I find lately very interesting. One of the main questions I always get asked, when I have a keynote or something somewhere, is from people working, in the industry of coaching and where you have conversations, therapy, you know, health coaching, all this, is like, is AI going to replace me? Will people now turn more to AI systems, getting the help that they need, than book a session with me and pay for it? Yeah, so there's a real fear, and there are people I talked to lately that worked for years for big pharma industry, and they were like, okay, I do still training for them, but they don't book me for coaching anymore because they have just implemented some AI coaching system within the company to give that to their employees. So am I going to be replaced now? So how do you see that? Are people going to be replaced by that, or is it something else? Why do you give it straight to Ray?
I'm getting a tough question. The tough answer is yes, there will be. I mean, it's an industrial revolution, and so it's a disruptive technology. And the point is, every time we have that, wait, when was the last disruptive technology like in the world? Anyone has a guess? Sorry? The phones? Okay, and different guess? Please speak up because I don't hear you. The internet, okay. Somebody else? Say again? Electricity. Okay, so quick definer. A real disruptive technology is something that hits all parts of life at the exact same time. All parts means technology, politics, religion, personal life, social life, all of that at the same exact time. Phone came one by one. Internet came one by one. Electricity came one by one too, right? So the last time that happened was actually the steam engine. That's why we're all like, oh, I don't know what to do. But that's also why we're not used to taking challenges anymore and seeing, we can feel that and say, it's gonna, but we already know it will. Or we can take that as a challenge. How am I gonna survive this? And it's a survival fight for some of us. So how do you distinguish yourself from an AI is the actual question. And if you find your way around that, or if your company finds a way around that, which would be the ethical thing to do, if I know some of my people are going to lose their jobs because I am going to replace them, then I should be the one taking care of how are they going to survive afterwards. But that's the ethical thing about it, that people should actually be asking. I'm sorry to say that.
And the question is like, how will we survive this? We had the discussion yesterday a little bit around that I think we need to become better humans.
Exactly.
Yeah, because honestly, we're really bad humans. If you look at the average, around, maybe not you or you, but if we look at what's happening on a global perspective currently, we can do a lot better as humans. And sometimes I think I would rather have an AI making some of these decisions than humans driven by pure emotions and personal interests as well out there. So I think that's the interesting discussion that you're just also raising, is like, where are we going to be and who are we going to be in that picture? Because yes, we should not lie to people. They will be replaced, but there is something more that we need to focus on what makes us really human.
There's also a business perspective in that. If everyone, I'm overrating now. If everyone is losing their job, who's going to use and pay my product? Right? So there is a couple of different perspectives on that. And if you look into history, we can learn from history. I know everyone is always saying, yeah, don't tell me that. But history is constantly repeating, and we're doing the exact same steps as we did with the steam engine back then, all over again. So we already should be able to know, after this height that we're at, comes a plateau. After that plateau, people are going to lose their jobs, and after they lose their jobs, a lot of companies going to close because nobody has money to actually buy a product. So the only way to get past that is I will keep you in my company, and I will help you keep a new job in the future.
I love that you say it. My husband works in IT, same discussion. They have a lot of juniors that are now being replaced by AI, full stop. But now they don't have any growing into seniors that can judge the AI systems anymore because they have never learned how to properly code. Yeah, so code review processes, they call it now cognitive debt. Yeah, and I love that expression, and that's in the IT industry, to call it a cognitive debt, because when something goes wrong in the beginning of the thinking, yeah, tracking that back through all the bad output that you then get is going to be a big problem. You wanted to say something?
I was just going to add that even now at a kind of university setting, we talk a lot about how do we prepare students for this future where some skills may not be as relevant anymore, some may change. And I think the consensus has really been about you still need to know how stuff works, you still need to know the basics, but then it's more about upskilling you to be able to use the tools that you are going to go away and have to use anyway. We cannot just be like, do not use LLMs, don't use generative AI, and then you hit the workforce, and then if you can't use these things, no one's going to hire you. But how do we balance between what we have traditionally taught and what you should still know, because we still need to know these things about the world, and how do you remain relevant and have the skills that you need? And I don't think we're there yet, but it's kind of a very ongoing discussion and process.
And I guess that's going to be the challenge, no? In the next years is how can we manage that change? And we don't need AI for that. We need humans for that. Yeah, we need to sit with each other through this uncertainty, because AI cannot sit with it. It's not embodied, yeah, in any ways. And I learned a nice metaphor yesterday. I mean, I learned it before, but we discussed it a lot around that now in these times, we need to learn to be more like buffaloes. Does anybody know that analogy? Yeah. It's very interesting. Cows, when there's a thunderstorm and a big storm or snowstorm arriving, cows are running away. Buffaloes turn around into the storm. They chase through the storm because they're quicker through. Yeah, so ignoring it or running away from it is even worse than just standing there. We have to face this, and we have to face it together, run through that storm together, and sit with each other or accompany each other in this uncertainty, because I think nobody here on the panel or here in the audience knows where this is really all going. Like in the steam engine times, nobody could actually really picture how it's going to be like 10, 20 years ahead.
Maybe not. Well, okay, wait, hold on. Okay.
I knew you were going to go.
Oh, God. So you all have a picture in your head where the world is going to be in 20 years if we follow on this road. So, and if you look 20 years back, you had a picture of in 20 years as well. I really am, I'm telling you, we do know where this is going. We just don't want it to be true. That's the part of it. We all know the picture where it's going to be in 20 years. We all know that bots are going to talk to bots. I'm in the morning maybe going to tell my personal assistant how it's going to be and what I'm going to do and what I want it to do, and it's going to tell me some summary somewhere later in the day and all of this stuff. And we could say this is all going to be true. So it's not about, do we know? We do know. Because that's what we imagine. That's why we're actually actively working on this stuff, because we want it to be true. And for me, if I want something to be true, it will be. And if we all want something to be true, it also will be. So it's up to us to decide what is going to be true. Are we going to leave people behind, losing their jobs, and they're going to sit on the streets? Are we going to make them come with us and help them learn to have a bright future? Or are we going to do nothing and just see where it goes and end up in chaos? But we all know where we're heading. So please don't ever tell me, I'm always going to fight against that, you don't know where we're going. We actually know where we're going.
Do you all know where we're going? Dig deep.
Let's make it enhanced, because who knows where they're going? Like, where is the future going to be in 20 years? Do you have a picture? It's not about certainty, it's about having a picture. Having a picture?
Maybe your fear.
Yeah, fear is a
Can you
picture as
fear?
well.
Can you picture your fear, where you might fear this might go?
That's the point. It's not about good or bad. It's about having a picture, knowing where you're going.
Yes, please.
When I think about where the future could go, and I think about the breakdown in our societies and the rise in loneliness and the amount of emotional attachment that we bring to these technologies, I do have a deep fear. Because I have kids. So if you've got children, like these technologies, they've never known anything any different, and they do form attachments. And loneliness, if you look at the statistics, it's actually quite frightening how pervasive it is in our societies. Like in the US, they have like a loneliness like expert, basically, like a medical doctor, and like, yeah, I would say that we have a responsibility, and that is why we create these spaces where we can talk about these issues, and why we have really important academics looking at the research, because if we're not careful, like we're really not protecting that future generation. So it's a really important conversation, this, like, how much attachment do we bring by the voices that we choose and the way in which we design these systems.
Or even the avatars that are going to look like us now. One closing question from my side is there one thing that you want people to remember in 6 months' time about this panel, about our discussion? What would you do? What would you say about it?
I'd say have a reflection about what your values are, what is important to you, what is important to think about from your perspective, and then have a think about other perspectives, how other people might value different things, and then consider how that's getting translated to whatever it is you're building. Are you bringing your values? Are you bringing your company's values, the platform provider's values? How is that kind of surfacing in the decisions that you're making when you're designing or building whatever it is you're building, and how can you expand that to cover a more kind of diverse set of values?
I think it's two different things which are the same but different. On a personal level, please be open. Please use it. Please play around with it. Playing around with it, open-minded, means you're educating yourself on it. And the hard part is for us in this room, I guess, to differentiate between me personally and me, the professional. And these are two very, very different perspectives. And try to see them as such, because both will learn different things, and both perspectives are very, very important. So in 6 months, try to use these as two different things. Me personally, what do I think? Be patient, see of the regulations, learn that you are not the only one, and everyone around you has the same question: what's going to happen tomorrow? On the professional side, keep up, see how it's going to be used as a tool without your personal opinion. So keep them apart. Give yourself the space to learn, adapt, and know that you know nothing and nobody else knows anything either.
So mine would be, don't make assumptions. I'm a big believer in co-design and really getting to understand my customers at an individual level. So any time where you can actually get in a room with people and really test all of your assumptions, because you will definitely be surprised when you'll have had a kind of thought pattern of this is the way it's going to go, but we'll just check, and then before you know it, your whole project is turned upside down because that assumption is completely wrong. So yes, make sure you work with your customers directly and make sure that you're really thinking about it from their perspective and what they actually need, and you can't really go wrong then. So that's my last thoughts.
Thank you so much also for the conversation. Thank you for listening in. And remember the buffalo.